Well, welcome Somerville. Somerville Stands Together is a coalition uniting organizations fighting for labor, racial, housing, climate, and environmental justice. Tonight, we will be asking questions about these issues and immigration, Somerville Public Schools, and the city's climate forward plan. We believe these topic areas are closely intersected, and we welcome you to consider those intersections in your responses. For example, as we discuss the future of our city, we ask candidates to confront our city's history of racism in redlining, environmental disinvestment, and civic participation, not just as past wrongs, but as present day realities. I am Diane Wong, the director of the Racial Justice Collaborative and a Somerville Stand Together member. I'm pleased to be co-moderating today's forum, and now we'll pass the mic to Rodrigo Rodaro.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Rodrigo Badaro, business agent with the Painters and Allied Trades District Council 35 and Somerville Stands Together member. We will begin with brief openings remarks from each candidate. We will then ask one candidate to respond to one question for 1.5 minutes. Subsets of the remaining candidates will then have 1 minute to respond. All candidates will have the opportunity to be the initial respondent on one question, and all candidates will have a chance to speak to each category of questions. A few additional questions will be yes or no only. We will conclude the forum with final remarks of 1 minute each from the candidates. Somerville Stands Together wants to thank all of our co-sponsors and especially the Forum Planning Committee, Marcy Goldstein-Gell, Bonnie Bastien, Collie Berard, Tom Wall, Tom King, Greg Hill, and Rand Wilson.
We will now invite each candidate to share opening remarks, no more than 1 minute each. And we're going to call you in alphabetical order, starting with Scott Istvan.
Great. Hello, and thank you all for hosting this and having me here. My name is Scott Istvan. I use he, him pronouns. I am a coder, comedian, cocktail slinger, and candidate for city councilor at large. I live over here in East Somerville. My focus in this campaign is pretty straightforward. I want to make it easy for folks to choose sustainable transportation options by removing barriers to things like transit, walking, and biking. I want to build more housing of all types so that people can afford to live here. And then my number one day one priority is overhauling our permitting so that it works for small businesses and individuals who can't afford teams of lawyers and architects to get things done. And hopefully by that, tackling our glut of pits and vacant properties that we have across the city, despite the fact that property values keep going up and up. And I'm really thankful to be here tonight and thankful that we have such an engaged community like you all in Somerville, and I'd be honored to represent you.
Thank you, Scott. Next up, Jonathan Link.
Hi, my name is John Link. So thank you to our moderators and Somerville Stands Together for having all of us here to talk. Thank you to everyone who's tuning in right now to be active and engaged. I came to Somerville in 2012 as a renter and an ESL teacher. I eventually ran an ESL school, became a software engineer, became a vice president of software engineering. And somewhere in between there, I met my wife, who is the director of addiction medicine at a community health center. And spending time with her, I realized that there was really I missed giving back, and that's why I'm here now. I've got 2 kids, a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, who go to the Argenziano School. I'm passionate about affordable homes, adding to our commercial base, creating more commercial spaces that are affordable, keeping the arts and culture here, safe streets for roads, bike lanes, and sidewalks, and Winter Hill School. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Next up, Will Imbaugh.
Okay. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
We
Oh,
hear you. Yep.
yeah. Thank you, Dan. Apologies. Yeah. So thank you to Somerville Stands Together, and to you, Dan and Rodrigo, and everybody else that has helped in this, engagement. So my name is William Barr. I'm serve as the Vice President of the City Council. I believe Somerville's future depends on how boldly we act to protect workers, to make housing truly affordable, to confront inequities, and to ensure our transition to a clean energy future leaves no one behind. As someone who came to this country with little and who found purpose in public service, I know firsthand how strong communities are built through solidarity, compassion, and fairness. And I've carried those values into every decision I've made on the council. From championing our wage theft ordinance to strengthening affordable housing programs to advancing climate-forward policies that create good union jobs. Our city's progress must always be measured by how we treat the most vulnerable.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Next up, Jack Perenick.
Thank you very much. I'm really glad to be back here with Somerville Stands Together. I've had the opportunity to go to a number of events over the years, and I've always been impressed how well the intersections of so many of the issues and the values that our community really matters are discussed here. I'm really glad to be able to be here tonight to share my vision for what our city needs to do to truly achieve some of those affordability goals that we talk about so much. So much of the work that we need to do in Somerville relies on making the housing that people already have more affordable for our community. We desperately need to reform our mixed use requirements in this city so that we can have more housing and more commercial tax base to pay for the increasing cost of city services. I'm really proud of some of the work that I've had the opportunity to do as a member of some advisory committees in the city, working on quality open spaces and green spaces that keep our community sustainable and provide a place for recreation and wonderful opportunities for members of our community to congregate. I'm really looking forward to ways that we can do that by improving our school programs, and most importantly, being your voice, following up on issues that we know need attention in the city, being the one-to-one person that helps guide and make sure that development happens. I'm glad to have that opportunity.
Thank you, Jack. And next up is Holly Simeone.
Thank you, Diane. Thank you to everyone here tonight who's joined to listen to this forum, and thank you to Somerville Stands Together for hosting this tonight. I'm Holly Simeone, and I grew up right here in Somerville, and I'm running for city council because I want to bring back common sense and values and experience. We say that we care about affordability, but families are priced out. We talk about equity, but too many voices are still ignored. And we treat climate change sometimes as buzzwords instead of really as a true crisis that we need to solve for. I've worked at the state level, helping to draft and pass new bills that actually made people's lives better. I've worked with our state elected officials to push real change and bring experience from business, technology, and healthcare. So I know how to make systems work for people, not the other way around.
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you.
And Kristen, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Somerville Stands Together, for holding this forum. As ST, I've worked along many of you for years, and I welcome tonight's conversation. I'm Councilor Kristen Struzzo. I'm your city councilor at large, and I'm running for re-election 4th term this year. I'm a single mom of 2 in the Somerville Public Schools. I live in affordable housing, and I'm born and bred in a union household. Upholding union values are baked into my DNA. All of these experiences guide my approach to my Somerville service. I'm grateful to be endorsed this year by many unions, Greater Boston Labor Council, Teamsters 25, Somerville Firefighters Local 76, and more. My focus is making sure that everyone who wants to live in Somerville can stay in Somerville. I'm fighting for expanding affordable housing, union labor, worker rights, sustaining our small businesses for seniors' right to age in place, and ensuring that everyone knows they're valued here. I have my work and my record as testimony that I get things done, and I'm here to work together for all of Somerville with you.
Thank you, Kristen. And next, Marianne Wallace.
Good evening. Thank you to everybody who came to this forum. My name is Marianne Wallace. I am a lifelong resident of Somerville. I am a social worker and I am a union leader. I am running for city council at large because I know the best way to work with people is to bring people together and listen to everybody's point of view. That is how I use my role as a social worker. I have fought my life for children and families in Somerville and beyond. I have also used my union role as a way to organize members and fight for what's right, not only at a city level, at the state level, and in the workplace, because we know that good paying jobs and a career leads to housing stability and a strong future for for all families. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. And next up and last, Ben Wheeler.
Ben Wheeler is currently not in the room, so we will move forward without him. Never
Thank you
mind,
all.
he is in the room. Okay. He's an attendee, so we will need to go back to him. We will move forward and we will figure out a way to get Ben back into the room.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you all. Our first set of questions will be about labor justice. Using project labor agreements, PLAs, on construction projects offers the advantage of ensuring consistent labor standards and quality, which can lead to a smoother project execution and reduce disputes. Additionally, PLAs foster collaboration among contractors, workers, and stakeholders, promoting efficiency and cost predictability. Importantly, they serve as a major deterrent to wage theft, including unpaid overtime, underpayment, or denied wages, by establishing transparent wage rates and adherence to fair labor practice throughout the project's duration. Finally, while there's still work to do, the data from Massachusetts shows that unions, especially when guided by inclusive project agreements, are making meaningful strides toward racial and gender equity in the trades. Recognizing how PLAs contribute to creating pathways for women and people of color is essential as we continue to build a more inclusive, skilled workforce. Question: what actions would you take in your role as an elected official to promote the adoption of project labor agreements? Scott, you will have 90 seconds to respond. Then Will, Jack, Holly will have 1 minute each.
Great. Yes, thank you very much for that question. I think project labor agreements, I feel like, should be something that is standard on large projects, right? Especially promoting union labor on any large projects, whether that's the proposed tower in Davis Square or the redevelopment of Brick Bottom. I think this is something that really needs to be included, not only because it's, fair labor practices is good for the community, good for the workers, but also because it makes a better product in the end, right? When we have all the voices at the table, we get a better outcome. So I would support, especially for large projects, requiring PLAs, and that can be something that I think the planning board should be enforcing as they're reviewing big projects and things like that. That's my perspective. I still have 30 seconds on the clock, and I will cede the time to hear other voices.
Thank you. Will?
Thank you, Rodrigo. And I share the sentiment of my colleague Scott. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I share the sentiment of my colleague Scott for your response. Thank you for mentioning all that, because it's like you've said, this is something that I fully support, and it's something that we actually have to, like, if you talk about project level, agreement, it's just to ensure fair wages and working conditions. And we actually had that dating back, even with the project in assembly with partners. So I will work with our legal, department and use every tool within our jurisdiction to ensure and encourage that every PLA, wherever possible, would actually ensure the benefits that our workers deserve. So I share, Scott's sentiment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really proud to have signed the Greater Boston Labor Council's Solidarity Pledge to the labor movement. I support project labor agreements in every project possible, and I'm willing to commit to withhold my vote on making the zoning changes necessary until we get them on the projects that we know we can build with union labor. I also want to see us really go beyond this. The project labor agreements that we've had on projects in the city have been great. I want to see us move forward and protect union jobs at every level. That means building staffing agreements that make sure that not only we're building projects with union labor, but we're keeping them maintained and occupied by good paying union jobs that will sustain the community in the long term. I'm really dedicated to making this a part of our zoning process so that these jobs are built into development, and so that the people who live in Somerville now, that local people have good access to local jobs. That makes our community's development benefit this community. PLAs are a strong way to lock that in, and I'm convinced that our role as the council is incredibly important to doing that. And you have my commitment that I'll withhold my vote until we get a strong PLA on every project possible.
Thank you, Jack. Holly.
Sorry about the Oscar music.
Thank you. I would actually recommend creating a city ordinance that mandates project labor agreements for projects above a specified threshold, whether that be size, scope, or investment. I think that being from a union home, union labor, fair wages, safety, all combined together, and that we should really look to establish that as part of our code of ordinances.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Wage theft. Despite existing laws, enforcement challenges and limited awareness contribute to the persistence of wage theft. This is the question. What strategies or measures would you put in place to ensure effective enforcement of the Somerville wage theft ordinance? Jonathan, you will have 90 seconds to respond, and then Kristen, Marianne, Ben will have 1 minute each.
Thank you. Yeah, so wage theft is a serious issue. So many people in Somerville are struggling with affordability, and not getting paid and not getting paid fairly makes that like just so much intensely harder. We talked about PLAs just a second ago, so that's one thing that we can and should do. Making sure that more projects have PLAs. But also we need to require businesses to notify employees of the how to contact the Wage Theft Advisory Committee. We also want to make sure that our city is fully staffed, fully resourced, so that they can actually field these complaints and then investigate the reports and support our workers. We should also make sure that for city work, we are not allowing bids from employers who have been caught stealing wages. It's really, really important that we make sure that the risks are worse than the rewards for doing this really unethical behavior and punishing our workers in our city. Working families deserve better, and that's what we need to do.
Thank you, Jonathan. And next, Kristen.
Thank you. So I'm proud to say that I helped work on the establishment of the Wage Theft Advisory Committee, which works with the wage theft ordinance in the establishment. And sometimes there's difficulty making quorum. with that. So we need to ensure first that the Wage Theft Advisory Committee can always have quorum so that they can make the decisions, not on screen. And also we need to make sure that we have a line of candidates ready to go for that. Second, with the wage theft ordinance, we have to make sure that all workers in Somerville know their rights, but we also have to ensure that they feel supported, that they can come forward to report wage theft, because there have been cases where workers have disclosed to me that they're experiencing wage theft, but they're worried about retaliation. They're worried from their employers, and I've helped them with this, but making sure that our workers is supported getting there. That's important.
Thank you, Kristen. Mary Ann.
Hi, so I'm going to continue to do what I've been doing over the last several years, which includes meeting with employees, organizing against businesses, making sure that we're fully staffed at the city level to enforce, because part of the problem is we don't have the staff at the city level to enforce it. I've been at the State House testifying and at the Labor Board testifying on behalf of workers to ensure that they get their pay. And meeting with workers and letting them know that it is safe for them to do so, to report it, and they should report it, because it is not something we accept in Somerville. And I will continue on with my activism with what I have already done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Can we bring in Ben now?
Perhaps Ben can answer the question and
Hi, everybody. The technical problem that I ran into is just a reminder that access problems can happen to anybody. It's important that we keep working on those and keep reaching out. I'm glad to see everybody. I'll address this wage theft question. Enforcement matters as much as what the rules are on paper, right? And Somerville passed this strong wage theft ordinance in 2019 with the help of our two at-large counselors who are on this call. But it only works if we back it up. And that means more staffing in inspectional services and a permanent director, so complaints get real follow-up, and better coordination with the Attorney General's office, so employers who steal wages actually face real penalties. And that's something that John brought up as well. Repeated violation has to really matter and serve as a credible deterrent. And that means pushing to debar violators. We have to use all the tools that this ordinance gives us, tying city contracts and permits and licenses to compliance, so public dollars never reward bad actors. Workers deserve nothing less. Thanks.
So Ben, since we missed you the first time, can you just give us your opening?
Thanks. And I appreciate everybody's patience. Yeah, I'm Ben Wheeler. I'm a longtime educator, a small business owner, and a parent of 2 kids in Somerville Public Schools. My priorities are housing affordability, supporting working families, safer streets, and responsive government overall. I grew up nearby in Cambridge and attended Cambridge Public Schools, and I've spent my career expanding access and opportunity, both as an engineer and as a teacher, a designer of curriculum used across New York City and in other school districts, through training hundreds of teachers and working at Scratch, a nonprofit spinoff from MIT, providing free creative coding to millions of young people. Here in Somerville, I've been an active volunteer with the Somerville Community Land Trust, and I served on the Kennedy School Principal Search Committee and coached for the All City Robotics Middle School Club at East Somerville, the Intercenziano, and through the high school. So I'm running for City Council at large to bring a builder's mindset to City Hall, really emphasizing clear plans, working alongside people to try to adjust as we go, and keeping our policies rooted in community voice. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. The next question is a yes and no question about the right to strike for municipal workers. Do you join Somerville State Representatives Erica Ardenhoven and Mike Connolly in supporting the bill permitting the right to strike for educators and other public employees? Please answer yes or no. Again, in alphabetical order. Scott.
yes.
Jonathan.
Yes, enthusiastically.
Will,
Yes, absolutely.
Jack,
Yes.
Holly,
Yes.
Kristen,
Yes.
Marianne,
Yes.
and Ben.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thank you all. The next question is about housing. A recent report from Smart Asset using data from the MIT Living Wage Calculator determined that a single adult must make at least $125,000 to live comfortably in the Boston area. Or a household with two working adults and children, the number is $319,000. Many Somerville workers cannot afford to live in the community they serve, and home ownership in Somerville is becoming more elusive for working and middle-class residents. What actions would you take in your role as an elected official to increase affordable housing stock for low to moderate income renters and expand home ownership for first-time home buyers? And what actions will you take to do this responsibly, protecting labor rights and fair wages? Will, you will have 90 seconds to respond, and then Scott, Jonathan, and Holly will have 1 minute each. Will.
Thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate this question. I will talk about what action I took first in the past and then what I'm planning to take moving forward. Because as a city councilor at large and also a representative on the Affordable Housing Trust, I've helped to expand programs like the Somerville, Community Land Trust that a good colleague Ben mentioned, and then the 100 Homes program as well, which preserve and create permanently affordable units. So we need to double down on this effort and explore new social housing models and continue creative partnerships that make both renting and home ownership accessible for working families. No, so I will never when we talk about like prevailing wages, this is something that we need to integrate all that stuff. When we talk about fair wages, it's something that will talk about why we need to take care of our most vulnerable members in our community. Because theft is theft. We just mentioned wage theft in the past before, and we have colleagues that talked about all the ordinances that we passed. But we also need to continue to push for partnership and explore other creative mechanisms.
10 seconds.
Thank you. I think I'll save the time there. But
Thank you, Will. And now Scott.
Great. So number one thing is I want to expand our affordable housing overlay to cover the whole city and to give affordable housing developers more leeway to build affordable housing. I also want to build more housing across the board because studies show that it does, there are benefits to building housing of all types. So that includes upzoning our major corridors. That includes housing by right and mixed use districts. And also, I want to make it easier for individual homeowners who want to add a room or a unit to be able to do so by making our permitting process clear, streamlined, efficient, and transparent so that you don't have to be a big money developer to be able to build an ADU, for example.
Thank you, Scott. And Jonathan?
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, we have to build more homes if we want the city to be more affordable, and if we want living in the city to be more affordable. The rent's too high because we just don't have enough. Somerville alone is not going to be able to fix that, but we can do our part. So the issue is not just scarcity, though; it's also speculation and pointing towards what Will was talking about. We need to make sure that we are expanding groups like the Somerville Community Land Trust, also an organization that I volunteer at. And just to start, we need to make sure that we're making it easier for them to build through that partnership. Being able to kind of move that along quickly is going to save them money and time, and they're going to be more interested in building here. And as Scott mentioned, we need to increase our, we need to upzone around transit. And that means also maybe building a little higher by giving density bonuses. And I've got a couple more ideas, but I'll share it later.
Thank you, Jonathan. Holly?
Sorry about that. Thank you. Living this close to Boston, actually, we used to be a part of Charlestown and part of Boston is one driver for the price of our real estate. Another driver is that we have people who move here from all over who did not grow up in Somerville or who are not trying to find an affordable home to stay in Somerville. And the more that we allow large investors to build tall, regardless if it's near transportation, we will continue to build 80% market, or as I like to call it, luxury homes. I think that one way that we can address this is to help individual or small homeowners, owner-occupied 3 units in their homes, have ways to help them to lower the cost. Being a homeowner myself, our real estate taxes are crazy. And that's another reason why many of us end up leaving.
Thank you all. Another housing question. Back in 2018, Redgate, Preservation of Affordable Housing, and the Somerville Community Corporation sought to fund renovations at the public housing at Clarendon Hill by adding market rate units. The developer's business plan said they needed a waiver from a requirement to pay quote-unquote prevailing wages in order to make more housing affordable. Question: as a city councilor, would you vote to waive prevailing wages in order to fund more affordable housing? And how would you deal with the tension between funding more affordable housing and labor standards? Jack, you have 90 seconds to respond, and then Kristen, Marianne, Ben will have 1 minute each.
I'm really glad I got this one. Folks, these two things shouldn't be in conflict. And if they are, it means the city's failed in constructing a policy framework that makes it possible to build housing and actually pay people right. And so whenever this happens and if this is the true reality, it means that the city's failed. And unfortunately, that does happen from time to time. But obviously, I've spoken with workers who have suffered a variety of different labor issues at this project in Clarendon Hill. But this project is exemplary and one of the ones that we need to focus on replicating elsewhere in the city, where we see tensions between being able to build the number of units that we need, including projects like this, going to be 900 permanently affordable units. That adds 1,000 into what is our current 3,000. That's a huge increase in 1 year. Where there's issues, making sure that we get people the best possible wage, where there's a failure on the city, this is where we should use public subsidy money. I look at projects like Clarendon and like Star Market, where there's huge opportunities to both build market rate housing that is naturally of lower cost because it comes with a lot of density, and to integrate a huge number of permanently affordable subsidized homes. I think it addresses the two things we need to do. We have a very small amount of precious dollars that we can put towards housing. I'd like to see us use it to subsidize some of these projects so that we make sure that those labor rights are protected, that we build above the 20% number of affordable units. And it's possible with projects like this. We need to keep going. We need to make sure that we use that money as an important linkage way that we can connect the money that we need to make these projects deliver on our values. And I'm confident that if we keep working on projects like
Thank you, Jack. Now, Kristen.
Absolutely. And gosh, I wish I could have weighed in on the affordable housing question before, because I would have loved to talk about Section 8 as well. So with this note, I absolutely would not waive prevailing wages. That's not an option. And we must continuously sustain the climate here in Somerville. That just isn't an option. One job should be enough. And we can sustain union jobs with that as well. And that's pretty much it. We must sustain this and hold the line.
Thank you, Kristen. Marianne.
Hi. So I would not support anything that went against prevailing wage. And I take my lead from Councilor Killington, Councilor McLaughlin, and Councilor Scott, who were the city councilors at the time, only city councilors that stood against the legislation to override prevailing wage. And I would also follow the same path of going to the legislature and testifying against it, because we know when we shorten workers' wages, we end up jeopardizing more people becoming housing insecure. So it's important that when we stick with something, we are in it for the long haul and continues to fight the fight to ensure that this doesn't happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Marianne. And Ben.
Thanks. Yeah, I agree with my colleagues that affordable housing and strong labor standards should not be in conflict and should never be played against each other. They both really matter, and we can have both. Prevailing wages are not charity; they're an investment. They ensure quality. They help us, make sure that we have a professional workforce with deep expertise, and through apprenticeship. Partnership with unions and using project labor agreements means we can build our regional capacity to construct housing and invest in the next generation of people with these deep competencies. So we can't undercut workers to try to solve affordability. We are in a housing crisis, and if projects can't move forward because costs are too high, we're failing the people who need them most. But we should take a look at what are the costs that we're talking about here. There's a bunch of studies that estimate prevailing wage rules as adding about 6% to construction costs overall. And that's enough to matter, but it's something that we can definitely afford.
Thank you, Ben. And I've been asked to remind the speakers to please slow down. We have interpretation and we need time to hear and then interpret. Our next question is about, so I have to slow down too, racial and immigration justice. The next questions are about racial and immigration justice. Repairing racial harm requires more than policy. It requires dialogue and community education. This is the question. What actions would you take in your role as an elected official to support citywide conversations, forums, or school initiatives that confront Somerville's anti-Black history and build understanding between Black residents, BIPOC communities, and white neighbors? Holly, you will have 90 seconds to respond, and then Scott, Jonathan, Will have 1 minute each.
Thank you. I think it's very important as a city councilor to ensure that all people are welcome here. And I would fully support and attend all education, all community meetings, all examples of how we can do better in this specific area. I think that we need to treat each other as equals. We need to have respect and kindness for all people, even if, regardless of race, disability, age, gender. It comes down to treating neighbors as neighbors. So I would fully endorse investing our municipal funds as well as my time and energy in making sure that we have resources who can lead this conversation and make positive change. And then we follow through on that.
Thank you, Holly. Scott?
Yes. So, for me, I think this comes down to building community, right? How do we bring everyone together in community? And as an artist myself, I think that the arts are a great way to do this. I would love to see in many of our big citywide cultural events, whether that's things like Porch Fest, Open Studios, Honk, what have you, really making sure that we're reaching out to all of our diverse communities and making sure that they feel invited and welcomed in these sort of events that help us form our identity as a city in Somerville, right? Not to mention, obviously, continued education and programs to uh, support and continue to undo the effects of historical redlining that have, notoriously affected much of the U.S., including the Boston area.
1 second.
Oh, and okay, that's about 5 seconds left, so I'll leave it there.
Thank you, Scott. Jonathan?
Yeah, thank you. So I want to make sure that we're helping to support Rise Up, leadership for Black and BIPOC residents. And part of that is going to mean having to invest in removing barriers that people might have to becoming leaders, because we ask people to become leaders, but it's all on them. Whether they have kids, whether they have a job that they can't step away from because leadership. So we need to make sure that we give people time and remove barriers. So despite all of the progress that we've made, we definitely have a history rooted in redlining and divestment and economic and environmental disparities. If we look at 93, wards 1 and 4, run along, have 93 running straight through it, and it's our immigrants, people of color, and working families that are stuck right along there. I've had stories from people talking about how their house shakes every time a truck goes by. So we want to make sure that we have these stories and that they're shared, and that I would be willing always to help make sure that these events and educations happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonathan. And finally, Will?
Yeah, thank you, Dan, for that question. And I also want to thank Holly, Scott, and John for those generous responses. Just to build on that, I would say, as a Black immigrant and city leader, I represent both how far we've come and how much work remains. So I will continue fostering honest conversations about our city's history and promoting community programs that advance understanding, belonging, and shared progress. Thank you.
Thank you all. Immigrants in our city are being terrorized by federal agents, with many unable to leave their homes for fear of being abducted. Question: what steps will you take to increase protections for immigrants and ease their ability to access city programs and services in the current climate? Kristen, you will have 90 seconds to respond, and then Jack, Marianne, and Ben will have 1 minute each.
Thanks for this question. First, I want to make it, I'm not going to go too deeply into details because for the safety of our undocumented residents, we cannot and we should not, definitely not in a public forum. But I do want to say that we absolutely have residents here that we have some union members that are being targeted by ICE. And we have residents who are afraid to come to work, to walk their kids to school. We're setting up networks to help make that easier. No one should experience this level of terror ever. No one should experience this terror. So first off, making sure this Somerville Office of Immigrant Affairs are well-funded, well-staffed, well-supported within the community. That's very important right now. It has always been, but that needs to continue. I've stood by that. I've made steps to continue that, and I will make sure that they are well-funded and supported. And also, all of us as community members, please support. We have business owners that in our community that are losing staff, that are, please support Somerville small businesses, our immigrant communities, please come to East Somerville Main Streets has a program every Wednesday. Right now, after this meeting, we can all go support our favorite restaurant in East Somerville, or at least once a week. We can do this together as a community. There's small steps that we can take.
Thank you, Kristen. Jack.
Thank you. And this question is really important right now. I had the opportunity recently talking with some members of Padres Latinos to talk about the city's dark history in the 90s, when there was an incident in the city that resulted in the city passing an anti-gang ordinance that was used to target Latino members of our community. And it was a really dark and scary story to hear about our city's history. But it ended with this person telling me about the Count on Me pledge and efforts that Somerville residents undertook in the 90s to actually stand up and defend our immigrant community. I want to be really clear that in Somerville, we have to write our history of wrongs, and that means defending immigrants in our community. It means that we're banning face shields. One of the things that I've been happy to help work on at the state level is banning face masks for federal law enforcement officers. I think it's also really important that people have justice. There was an incident a few weeks ago where, and it happens all the time, that doesn't get news attention, where people are wrongly detained. I moved to Ward 1 recently, and I've been enjoying on Wednesdays eating out to help protect our immigrant community. But people in Somerville know that we all need to be able to say that people can count on.
Thank you, Jack. Marianne?
So this is an issue close to my heart and one that I deal with every day, not only with the families I service, but also the workers that I work with. It is important that we make sure that there's available resources to our immigrant community and a greater understanding. People are fearful of sending their children to school. People will not go to the doctors. People are afraid to go to the grocery stores. We must make sure that we talk with our immigrant community and what ways best serves them. Because going to a state or a city office doesn't always work for them because there's a lot of trust issues. So we need to make sure that we support our community organizations that are on the ground every day working with our families and helping them. We need to make sure they have housing. We need to make sure that they have their food, they have clothing. We need to make sure that their basic needs are being met without fear of being picked up.
Thank you, Marianne. Ben?
So I believe deeply in responsive government, which means in this case, listening to immigrant residents and to the community groups who know this work best. And their expertise really should guide how we shape our programs and services. One thing I've heard a need for is hybrid access for resources that are available in person at City Hall, also to always be available through online appointments, so people who don't feel safe walking in the door can still get help. Another is safety in numbers, inviting a wide spectrum of people to show up in spaces where immigrants are invited. We need to keep building our capacity for language access, so no one's shut out by translation barriers. And we need to deepen our partnerships with legal aid groups to help everyone get the resources and services they're entitled to as members of this community. And finally, we need crystal clear separation between federal immigration enforcement and city services, especially the police. People should always feel safe being part of Somerville with no fear.
Thank you, Ben. The next question is about our public schools. The final fiscal year 26 Somerville Public School budget is approximately a 7.5% increase from fiscal year 25, but not all of that new funding is guaranteed for future years. Furthermore, Somerville has a comparatively low percentage of city funding devoted to the public schools. What do you consider to be priorities for Somerville Public Schools, and what actions would you take in your role as an elected official to secure the necessary funding? And everybody remember to slow down. Me too. Marianne, you will have 30 seconds to respond. And then Scott, Jonathan, and Will have 1 minute each. Marianne?
I see the two priorities as being safe buildings that are healthy and staffing. We need to be able to have our children attend a consistent building that is healthy. We can't have concrete falling. We can't be in a cafeteria like last night where there's no AC and it was stifling hot. And then there's staffing. We need to make sure that there's a great student to staff ratio. That means funding the allotted positions that we need to make sure that our students get the attention and thrive in the school, which also means advocating for other ways for the city to be able to increase. such as the Fair Share Amendment was one of the ways which I was happy to participate in, walk 5 times a week to canvass to make sure it passed the ballot. But it's also about fighting at the State House because our money comes from the state. So one of the things that I did a few years ago, along with my fellow union siblings, was talk about how children in state care are not adequately, schools, municipalities for children who are in state care do not receive adequate funding, and that the state should actually be reimbursing municipalities around our children that need special services.
Thank you, Mary Ann. And now Scott.
Excellent. So the first thing I want to tackle is like some of the most heart-wrenching stories that I've heard on the campaign trail from the constituents are Winter Hill parents and parents of children in our various special education programs and non-native English speakers. We are doing these folks massive disservice. So I definitely want us to focus on not just keeping our heads above water, but really giving these families a vision to look forward to, right? A new Winter Hill school that is bigger, better, more inclusive, and more accessible for everyone. Staffing levels that are appropriate and honestly above standard. That makes sure that every child can get the attention and the education that we know as a city they need. We are a very educated city, but we're not living up to our educational values. So we need to make sure that we are prioritizing funding for our school buildings and staff.
Thank you, Scott. And next, Jonathan, and everybody, please slow down.
All right. So I guess to save time, so I won't speak so fast, I'll just say +1 to everything that just came before me. I 100% agree. I think the Winter Hill schools, when we talk about the Winter Hill schools, we also need to talk about what's happening right now. There are kids in those schools who are going to spend their entire K through 8 career in that school that was an office, that was a school again. It is unacceptable what their career as a K through 8 is going to be. So we need to figure out ways to make that right, and that might mean expanding access to extracurriculars or field trips, arts, finding other enrichment programs, so that they've got some a fair shake. We also need to make sure that we're keeping a close eye on food insecurity because of all the federal cuts that we're seeing. And I've got a laundry list, but I'll just say universal pre-K, making sure that especially on the west side of the city, after school, there's a lot. I don't think I have time to say it all, but the last thing I'll say is the corporate fair share bill.
Thank you, Jonathan. And now, Will.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. And Marianne and Scott, again, +3 or +4 for everything you just said, because just to build on that, like every child deserves the best start from pre-K through graduation. And we will use, leverage also as counselors, work with our school community members to make sure that funding keep, pace with need. And so there's always this uncertainty already that we are seeing. But that's why even currently I've really activated a full review of our city's reserve and stabilization funds to identify resources that we can redirect. That could go to after school, that could go to enrichment program. So yeah, no, there's a lot that we can do. But thank you, John, for mentioning universal pre-K. That is something we've been crying wolf from when we ran for office in 2017. It's still not a reality.
Thank you all. This next question is about the climate crisis. What are your top climate goals and how would you ensure they are advanced? Ben, you'll have 90 seconds to respond, and then Jack, Holly, Kristen will have 1 minute each to respond.
Thanks so much. So the biggest source of emissions and pollution in Somerville is vehicle exhaust, right? We see it all the time, all the traffic, the cars idling, waiting for lights. And vehicle miles also make our streets unsafe, especially when suburban drivers who are in a rush are cutting through Somerville. So safer streets, including protected bike lanes, reliable buses, safe crossings for pedestrians. They don't just save lives, they give people viable, fast alternatives to driving. And if we pursue housing affordability by building more housing that's close to transit, then we do two things at once. We're helping to provide more places for people to live and doing small steps towards helping resolve the housing crisis. But we're also able to cut car use and reduce the sprawl that's leading to so many drivers commuting through Somerville. And there's a large element of climate justice here too, around where the worst traffic is. Some of my fellow candidates talked about where 93 goes and where some of the worst air pollution is and how inequitable that is. We also need to improve how our city's built environment is responding to heat and heavy rain. So planting trees, adding green space, and making surfaces more permeable. It's not just aesthetic. It cools neighborhoods, it lowers AC usage, and it keeps sewage from overflowing into our rivers. So for me, climate and affordability really go hand in hand, and I think we need policies that cut emissions while making Somerville more livable.
Thank you, Ben. Next is Jack.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really proud to have been able to work on the city's latest green space plan and help develop the pollinator action plan, building out green spaces across the city. It really can't be understated how important the biodiversity and native species are in our plants and projects. One of the things that I would hope to work on the council is better enforcing the native planting ordinance, making sure that we've got native plants across the city and all of our parks and establishments. Also making sure that we're integrating a lot of anti-flooding infrastructure. You know, there's some work that we can do on prevention for climate change. In reality, unfortunately now, because of how late we are and because of how much of the burden of this will fall on my generation, we need to work on a lot of adaptation work in Somerville. And particularly here, that means flooding. I'm dedicated to making sure that we're putting in a lot of work to make sure that flooding is incorporated into our streetscape and that we work to depave a lot of surfaces across the city on city space, but also helping residents with driveways, making sure that we reduce the urban heat island effect and make sure our community is as livable as possible.
Thank you, Jack. Next is Holly.
Thank you. I would like to add to what Jack just said about heat islands. And, you know, one big cause of them are when we build tall and dense. And areas like Union, where we have built housing and structures right to the curb, we don't have enough green space around, and that is really impacting the air quality. And even if we put a green roof on top, it's not going to offset what it's doing in harm. So it's not just cars, it's not just blacktop. It is everything that we build and everything that we do. And heat islands really are damaging for our respiratory systems. And I believe that we can offset some of that if we had more tree canopy. But we need trees in the right places, and we need to maintain those trees so that people can still walk and use our sidewalks and streets.
Thank you, Holly. Next is Kristen.
I'm up. Okay. So I love what I'm hearing as well. Let's talk about environmental justice, and let's talk about the sound barriers that need to be put up in place along I-93. Some we've waited for in wards 1 and 4 for decades and have been fighting for. I think this is an outstanding priority that we need to make happen. And I agreed with, we need to incentivize more depaving and homeowners to do so. And simple solutions, and additional, also wanted to talk about neighborhood electrification. Well, also, I think we need to find ways that we can increase that here in Somerville. And when I talk about simple solutions, 16 seconds, incentivizing people off cars, but also doing that through community benefit agreements and using community benefit agreements for employee buses throughout the city. I've talked about this in different forums.
Thank you, Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
This next question is about the budget process. So please respond about the budget process. How will you use your position as a council member during the budget process to advance good jobs, quality schools, affordable housing, and a better environment. You have 1 minute each in alphabetical order, starting with Scott, then Jonathan, Will, Jack, Holly, Kristen, Marianne, and Ben. Scott.
So first things first, when it comes to setting budget priorities, early in the year, we want to make sure that we're communicating these things, that these are our top priorities as a city. And then I am more than willing to be ruthless in cut night of striking anything from the budget that does not further these goals or runs contrary to these goals. Um, I think, like I said, or like we've talked about all evening, good jobs, project labor agreements, investing in our schools, building more affordable housing that normal people can live in, and building green infrastructure and a more green Somerville should all be our top priorities. And protecting our immigrant neighbors and families as well, I will add to that.
Thank you, Scott. Go ahead, Jonathan.
Thank you. Yeah, so obviously the city can't write the budget, but we can set the tone and hold the administration accountable for what we expect as city council. And part of that is that we can really demand that we're spending the money to save the money. We spend a lot of money on contractors and external contracts that are costing us more money than we would be spending if we just had people working in our city. We also need to kind of, as Scott was mentioning, we need to bring in public comment earlier into the process so that we can really understand, what people need from the city. And working with groups like unions and CAS and other tenant rights groups to make sure that we understand their needs and that we're collaborating with the mayor to prioritize the solutions that we have there. I think there's a lot more to say there, but my time is up. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Will.
Yes. Just to riff up from the death of John and Scott, I want to make it clear that, budgets are moral documents and they show what we value. So, I'll continue to use my voice, in this process to push for investment in fair wages, affordable housing, quality schools, and climate action. That's why I mentioned in our previous question that I've already, proposed a comprehensive review of our rainy day reserve funds to ensure that we are ready to meet future challenges. Because every dollar should work towards building a fairer and stronger Somerville. So we've already identified, a lot of money that, has been unspent for so many years, and we can reappropriate that towards the job creation and retention trust, and some of that will go to some of these other priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Will. Jack.
Thank you very much. Part of the reason I'm running for city council is I have experience setting budgets at nonprofits and analyzing budgets for groups. One of the most important things that our city council can do is continue to reform the budget process. I'm really proud to have testified before the Charter Review Committee in standardizing the way we've done the budget the last couple of years that has given the council an increased say in how that money is spent. But I really think one of the important things that the council is supposed to do here is their oversight rule. One of the tools we've seen declining consistently through past years in the council is the use of conditioning. Well, the council, yes, it can't create the budget, it can't create new funds, it can only reduce. We can condition the expenditure of funds on certain conditions and achievements from the administration. I think that this is an underused tool. I think that we
Slow down, please, Jack. Slow down a little, please.
Certainly conditioning more funds and making sure that we're using our power as a council to actually make sure that the budget reflects our values. And I think one of the most important ways that we do that is having budget sessions where department directors can come back a second time to answer questions that haven't been resolved.
Thank you, Jack. Holly.
Thank you. I would like to echo what Councillor Will Mbaugh said, that these are our moral documents and they represent our values. And I would also like to echo what Jack said, which is that the process needs to be reformed. I think that what I have seen is weak measurements set by departments to see how they're meeting their goals. I think we need to standardize goals and actually have performance tools so that we can understand how the budget is impacting the ability of each department to meet those goals. And I think that we also need to invest more in areas to get a better return in how we're using our funding. Obviously, to me, seeing my Winter Hill School sitting there for all these years shows one of the things that we have not been doing is maintenance, maintaining our buildings, our roads. That's where I would put our money first.
Thank you, Holly. Kristen?
Okay, here are some of the items that I have put forward in previous budget years and last year. Free menstrual products in all city-owned bathrooms. Free emergency contraceptive machines, 2 of them. ISD, more rat control initiatives. Office of Housing Stability, more staffing to support and legal support for anyone facing displacement. A Somerville senior liaison in the executive branch to help residents age in place and in dignity. And incentivizing ADU production within the city for homeowners, owner-occupied homeowners, so that they can create an ADU, and neighbor ways, so that we are finding simple solution to create a speed bump, slowing down traffic in the community, and cigarette boxes that trick smokers to place it inside of the cigarette box instead of voting. Instead of throwing it into the
Thank you, Kristen. Marianne?
Thank you. As far as schools goes, I know we only had the right to vote. Our city council only has the right to vote yes or no. I would always vote in favor of any increases to the school funding to support students and teachers, workers. As far as jobs go, I would always vote in favor of funding our municipal workers' contracts and supporting this goes back to what I said about supporting their right to strike. All of this is tied into good jobs, affordable housing. They're all interconnected because if you're not earning good wages, you can't afford stable housing, and it has non-stable housing has effects on our student population. So we really need to make sure that we have a good basis and always looking.
Thank you, Marianne. Ben?
Thanks. I appreciate Holly and Jack naming the new charter as something that puts in place a more thorough and transparent process for budget review. The budget's where the city's values show up in practice, and the council's role is to set clear priorities. We can't introduce new funding, but we can do a lot of public communication about what the expectations are, pushing on the mayor and saying what we insist be in the budget for us to vote yes. So for me, that means making sure resources go to things families feel every day: housing affordability, safe streets, and support by extending school for younger students and after school. I'd use the budget process to ask tough questions and to take the financial oversight role of the council very seriously. We need to work together, I think, as councilors to share the responsibility to ask about how effective every piece of spending is. And we don't want to create anxiety about cuts, but we want to take seriously the fact that every dollar we use could be used for something else that's also valuable. So my approach would be to connect these numbers back to residents' experience every time.
I love the music. Thank you all. We invite you to give 1 minute final remarks. Question: why should people vote for you? We're gonna do in reverse alphabetical order. Ben, Marianne, Kristen, Holly, Jack, Will, Jonathan, and Scott. Ben, you up.
So I was a small business owner for many years, working in education. And when I think about what I bring, what I'm trying to bring to potentially being a city councilor, I think a lot of it are things that I learned from introducing services and products and trying to provide real value that people would show up for and want to pay for and sign up for. And over, I learned the hard way often that the only way that you get to something really valuable for people is by really getting to know what people are facing, getting to know their obstacles, getting to know their needs, and trying things and having them not work the first time and adjusting again. So, I think that's something that not everybody with good intentions in government always understands. And I think we need to really be keeping in mind the need to build in learning into our processes and into our ordinances.
Thank you very much, Ben. Marianne, you up?
I would ask for people to vote for me because I've spent my lifetime fighting on behalf of the families and children of Somerville and workers. I believe community is everything and it is all heart. I have done a lot of work over the years, whether it be food drives, toy drives, helping people find housing, helping people maintain their housing, helping them get health insurance, and helping them get their basic needs met, and always advocating through community work, through my career as a social worker, through my job as my leadership in a union and working collaboratively with people. I always believe you have to bring everybody to the table and work collaboratively because we all need to negotiate to what's on the best interest of the residents of Somerville. So I would hope that people would vote for me on November 4th. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Kristen, you next.
Somerville, you deserve city leaders who are here for you and will stand up for you. I show up, I fight for you, and I will continue to. Your thoughts are important to me, and please reach out to me if you'd like to talk further about anything we discussed today, and I hope we do talk soon. Now and in the years to come, we need to stand together as a community for our Somerville values. I'll continue to be right there alongside you. And I'm asking for your vote for City Councilor at Large in the general election on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Holly, you next.
Thank you, Somerville. I ask for your vote on November 4th. Because I'm not afraid of a challenge. I'm not afraid of mentioning when something is broken and admitting when something needs to be fixed. Leadership is not about ego. It's about listening, learning, and doing what's right. We don't need more politicians in Somerville. What we need is action, accountability, and a city council that remembers who we are working for, and that will be the people. My experience, my values, being raised by two local artists, it makes me see things differently. Being the parent of a special needs child and going through the tragedies that I've lived through and the work that I've done for the community through the Commission for Persons with Disabilities has only made me stronger.
Thank you very much, Holly. Jack, you next.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to talk about some of these really difficult issues facing the city. And I want to ask for your support because I want to bring my experience as someone who understands the housing struggles of our community, as a renter who's lived in Somerville with multi-generational family, who suffers from a lot of different problems that many of the families in our city face. I really want to make sure that we advance safe streets. As someone who lives in a family with people with disabilities, it's difficult having a city that's not accessible. Like everyone else, I want to better fund some of our city services. I'm really focused on how we restructure city revenue to move the very burdensome cost away from residents and onto a commercial tax base that can sustain our growing costs as a community and truly live that value. The council can vote to fund as many things as we want to fulfill these budgets, but frankly, we need more revenue. Corporate fair share is an important part of that. The Fair Share Act that I was really proud to support is an important part of that. But I encourage people to go to my website at jackforsomerville.com if these have been important.
Thank you very much, Jack. Will, you're next.
Thank you, Rodrigo. I really appreciate this forum so we can share our thoughts. And I would just wish every city or ward councilor should be challenged because so we can really get a healthy conversation around the city. People talk about what they've been doing. I believe in Somerville where every worker earns a fair wage, every family can afford to stay, and our response to the climate crisis create pathways to prosperity and not just displacement. So as a city councilor, I've fought to make sure that our policies reflect not just good governance, but good conscience. And I'll keep fighting to ensure that progress reaches every neighborhood, every family, and every worker. So together we have proven that local leadership can be bold, inclusive, and rooted in hope. So let's keep building that future, a fairer, stronger, and more united Somerville for us all. If you share our campaign vision, then I humbly ask for your vote on Tuesday, November 4th. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Will. Jonathan, you're next.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate just how amazing it is that we've got all these people, intelligent, dedicated people who want to be part of the city council. I'm blessed to live in this city. If you want someone who's going to help to build more housing, especially affordable housing, support local businesses and art through doing things like improving permitting, zoning, and working to make sure our ISD makes sense. If you want someone who's going to help add more green space to your city, if you're looking for someone who is going to create safe streets so that kids and seniors alike can get around our city without worrying. We also want to resist ICE. And if you're looking for someone who can, work to better build our schools so that there's more equity for ESL speakers, for higher need learners, and equity across the whole economic justice and equity across the whole school system, then I hope I can get your vote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, John. Scott, you're next.
Great. So thank you, Somerville, for attending tonight. We're going to build more housing and expand our affordable housing. We're going to make it easy for people to choose sustainable transportation in the city, and we're going to overhaul our permitting to make it cheaper and easier for individuals and local businesses and immigrant-owned businesses to get a footing here and stay here in the city. My name is Scott Istvan. I would love one of your 4 votes on November 4th, and I'm very excited that I also get to vote for many of these other wonderful candidates here tonight. I would like to thank everyone here for running for City Council and being so engaged. I would like to thank Somerville Stands Together for putting together this forum. I know how hard that can be and how much you've worked on that. And I would really like to thank all of our engaged audience for being here and watching the entire evening or watching this recording, as it were, after the fact. So, a little bit of closing us out there. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Thank you very much, Scott. We want to thank all of the candidates for joining us at this important event, and to all of you for taking the time to attend. We will be disseminating the recording and clips and encourage you to share it with neighbors so we can all make an informed decision at the ballot box. Have a blessed and good night.